You a lawman or an outlaw?
Bit of both, I reckon.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for our Made in Texas interview series. Today, we are joined by the creatives behind the Paramount Plus series, Lawmen, Reeves. We have showrunner Chad Feehan and the series directors, Christina Voros and Damian Marcano. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So, as we know, the series follows a legendary lawman, Reeves, who has lived a vast and varied and really epic life. With such an incredible story as your starting point, where do you start with a story like this?
Discovering that Bass was forced to accompany George Reeves into the Civil War on the side of the Confederates, escape enslavement over a dispute over a card game, and then live amongst the American Indians in Indian Territory. For me, that was arguably the most exciting, inciting incident that I've ever come across. So it was pretty obvious early on in the research of where to start his story.
Well, I mean, given all of your individual histories and past your career and everything you've done in the industry, how do you come to a show like this and kind of maintain a series tone while adding your unique vision?
Trust was a big thing for me. I mentioned this earlier. Like working with the two of them, and there's other people that aren't here right now that I have to thank all for that overall trust. I felt it's just they have a production environment that is very welcoming and supporting of all ideas. Even if your idea can be wrong, it is not a room in which you feel like, oh, I'm not going to speak up because I remember the last guy that spoke up, right? This isn't that. This is literally, I met people that were very passionate about what they were doing. Like they were almost drunk in it, man. And I was drinking the same thing. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. But yeah, that's I think that was it for me.
I think when you have scripts to work with of the intensity and heart that Chad and our writers put out for this project, you feel like you have a net underneath you because so much work has been put into the details, the historical details, the depth of character, that it really frees you to, as a director, to direct and to work with the words and the ideas on the day. And the same can be said to, every single department, from production design to wardrobes to animal coordinator, wrangling teams, stunts. There is so much in doing a period piece that you need to stay on top of for it to be authentic. There was something we all felt we needed to do justice to this story, to this man. And there was just an incredibly succinct and ferocious desire to be spot on. And as a director, you could really relax into your job knowing that everyone was protecting the show that way.
That's incredible. Well, it really speaks to you too, Chad, for creating that environment as the showrunner. So congratulations.
Kindness and dedication are the two mantras that I try to live by on a film set. So.
Well, you talked a little bit about the historical accuracy just now. And so with a story like this, where you do have a historical figure that you're basing the series on, but you're also creating a world, right, and characters in it, how do you kind of balance that historical accuracy and also the fiction of it?
For us, it was finding the seminal moments of Bass's life that have been reported, that we wanted to use as our foundation in the narrative, and then filling in the in-between with ideas or characters that resonated with our thematics. And the triumph of the human spirit was first and foremost. Then it was the universality of the human condition. And then it was the weight of the badge, and then several themes after that. And so, that's the joy of being a writer and being in a writer's room, of lobbing up ideas and seeing if they stick and arguing about their merit and hopefully creating the most compelling narrative that we could that also honor the legacy of Bass Reeves.
So the series, like we've said, is set in the late 1800s. And I recall when I joined on that early scout, the authenticity of the locations was very important. There was a lot of research, there was a lot of thought into wanting to get locations that were truly from that time. Can you talk a little bit about your scouting process and your experience filming on location?
There had been a lot of work done by the time I showed up in terms of picking hero locations. I will say, our center of operations was in Weatherford, and most of our locations were sort of within an hour in all directions from Weatherford, and then that's just a crew parking, not like the extra 20-minute gator ride to get to where we'd actually picked to shoot. I think Texas offers so much in terms of the richness of landscape, the difference in landscape. You're living in dreams. And I think if you pick the right location, you're more likely to be able to succeed in what your dream version of that scene will turn out to be.
Yeah, having grown up here, obviously I'm biased because I'm Texan, but there's something incredibly unique about the landscape that I don't think you can find many other places. I've shot in Los Angeles, obviously. I've shot in Atlanta. I've shot in New York. I've shot Pittsburgh. I've shot in a lot of places, and love all of those crews. But the combination of the landscape with the crew that you get being here is bar none.
There's a lot of places that we filmed when I was here that Texans would say, where? Strawn, Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with Strawn. Yeah, but it just, I don't know, it's brilliant, man. It's, as both Christina and Chad said, the people were bar none. And I have worked with a lot of those crews in all those other cities, but Texas is literally my favorite. And then on top of that, as a filmmaker, I am, some directors are all about performance. Some are about different things. I've always been about the four corners of my image and how the performance takes place in there. And I've never shot anywhere as beautiful. I'm just dying to come back.
Please do.
Yeah, I'm like ready to shoot next week. Maybe Chad has like a script that may fall out somewhere. I'm just, but I think our jobs respectively each are so hard, and a lot of it is just the fact that you are responsible for so much. You've been tasked either by people at the studio level or your writers or your other directors, and in a good relay race you have to do your part of the leg. But it was just so purposeful being here, and I don't think we wasted any time just sort of making fluff. So I think just to add that on top of it is probably why I am so in love with the art of filmmaking in the state of Texas.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Christina, how did this differ from the previous Westerns you've worked on?
Oh, in a lot of ways. I mean, it's funny, coming from the Yellowstone universe, the landscape is not only is a character, but it is the character, right? It is number one on the call sheet. It is what everything is about. And Bass Reeves takes place in the land, but it's not about the land. It's about the man and the humanity. And so that was a really subtle and maybe like hyper intellectual concept, but I really felt it throughout the process of making the film. Taylor didn't write this. Chad and our writers specific to this show wrote this, and it is a cousin, not a brother, I think. It has some of the same DNA and some of its own. And having done work in Texas as well, it felt pretty seamless.
It sounds like with the story, with the locations, with the cast, you guys have an incredible alchemy of a show here, and we're so glad you made it in Texas, and we can't wait for the world to see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Shoot in Texas.
Yeah, shoot in Texas for sure, man.